You know that feeling, right? You're on a fantastic team, everything's clicking, the energy is amazing, and then slowly it just loses its spark. What if I told you the reason vibrant startups turn into these sluggish bureaucracies has less to do with strategy and way more to do with physics? Yeah, you heard me right. Physics. Okay, let's get into it. It's a question that drives every leader, every dedicated team member absolutely crazy. You've got the right people, you've got a solid plan, and yet, over time, things just kind of drift, don't they? Communication gets sluggish, processes start to break down, and that fire you had at the beginning, it starts to fade. So what is this invisible force that's pulling even the best teams apart? Well, here it is, the root cause. It's not your strategy. It's actually a fundamental law of the universe. I'm talking about the second law of thermodynamics. This law basically says that everything, and I mean everything from your morning cup of coffee to a massive corporation, naturally moves from a state of order toward disorder. Okay, so let's start with the problem itself. We've really got to understand this universal force, this invisible current that's always working against the order you're trying so hard to build in your organization. And that force, it has a name. It's called entropy. You know, it's the simple, totally unavoidable fact that disorder is the default setting for the entire universe. Your coffee gets cold, your desk gets messy, and your organization, if you just leave it alone, gets bureaucratic and slow. See, it doesn't take any effort for things to fall apart. It takes constant, active effort just to hold them together. Now, what's so interesting here is how this really frames the challenge, right? Creating a focused, high-energy team is like making a fresh, hot cup of coffee. It's this improbable state that requires a constant input of energy. The probable, the default direction, is for that team to become a tangled mess of bureaucracy. Just like that coffee will always go cold. And this is where so many leaders get it wrong. They try to fight this decline by adding more rules, more processes, but that's like trying to write a policy memo to keep the coffee hot. It's just not going to work. You can't fight physics with policy. You have to fight physics with better physics. So wait a minute. If this universal law says everything slides into chaos, how does anything complex, like life itself, even exist? Well, it turns out nature has a playbook for fighting back against entropy, and it's a code that we as leaders can totally borrow. The secret here comes from a Nobel laureate named Ilya Prigozhin. He figured out that life exists as something he called a dissipative structure. And the key idea, the real game changer here, is that life isn't a closed system, it's an open one. It survives by constantly exchanging energy with its environment, staying in this state of dynamic action, way far from that stagnant equilibrium that in biology basically means death. And this is just incredible because it shows a universal truth you can find in both modern physics and ancient wisdom. So physics calls it an open system that imports energy and exports entropy. In Vedantic philosophy, you have the concept of dharma, this cosmic force that upholds order and fights against chaos, or adharma. Two totally different frameworks, right? But they both point to the exact same action. You have to bring in new energy, and you have to actively push out the waste if you want to survive and thrive. Okay, so this brings us to a huge mistake that so many leaders make. They unintentionally treat their teams, and honestly themselves, like closed systems. And that's a direct path to stagnation and burnout. And here is a huge reframe for you. Burnout isn't about doing too much work. It's about carrying too much entropy. Think about it. It's the result of all that accumulated waste. When a leader stops importing new ideas and fails to export all that entropy, the unresolved conflicts, the toxic people, the outdated processes, all that waste heat just builds up inside the system. The internal friction becomes unbearable, the system overheats, and that feeling, that's what we call burnout. All right, so how do we actually apply this? How do you turn your team into one of these resilient open systems? The answer is to build what the source material here calls a Negentropy Flywheel, a practical engine for constantly fighting that decay and building real momentum. So this flywheel has 3 core actions, and they all work together. First, you've got to intentionally import high-quality energy. We're talking fuel like purpose and new ideas. Second, you have to minimize internal friction. That means cutting down on the bureaucracy and the useless work that just generates waste heat. And third, you have to consciously export entropy, actively removing the toxic rituals and the misaligned people from the system. Let's break down what each of these really looks like.
So, importing energy, this isn't just about hiring more people. It's about bringing in high quality fuel. This means reconnecting the team to its purpose, its real why. It means bringing in fresh perspectives, maybe from customers or from other industries. And this is so critical. It means the leader has to rest, read, and reflect. Because let's be real, you cannot jumpstart a car with a dying battery. A leader who isn't recharging has absolutely no new energy to give to their team.
Exporting entropy is just as important. Think of this as your team's waste valve. It means making that tough call to manage out those toxic high performers. The ones who deliver results but completely destroy the culture, creating a net negative energy balance. It also means creating a stop doing list. Seriously, what meetings, what reports, what rituals have you guys outgrown? Actively getting rid of them is like flushing waste right out of the system.
Okay, so when you put all of this together, it leads to this incredibly powerful new metaphor for leadership. It completely redefines your most important job. You're not the one who has to do all the work anymore. You're the one who manages the energy.
There's this famous thought experiment from the physicist James Clerk Maxwell. He imagined this tiny little demon controlling a door between two chambers of gas, and all this demon did was open the door for the fast-moving, high-energy molecules and close it for the slow ones. And by doing that, just by sorting, this demon could create order and generate energy without doing any actual work itself. It was a gatekeeper.
And this is the ultimate role of the thermodynamic leader. Your primary job isn't to be out in front pushing the sled, it's to stand at the door of your team. You open that door wide for all the high-energy inputs, purpose, passion, new ideas, amazing customer stories, and you firmly shut that door on all the low-energy entropy, the cynicism, the gossip, the bureaucracy, the toxic rituals. You manage the flow. That's the job.
So this leaves us with one last thought to take away with you. Just look at your own team, your own organization, and think of yourself as that gatekeeper, that demon at the door. What are you intentionally letting in, and what are you actively keeping out? Because managing that flow, well, that's the difference between dynamic life and slow, inevitable decay.